yeah, thank you very much for this invitation. It's always good to speak, and especially to speak through lessons. Because it's not like I want to teach you, I'm sure I cannot teach you, but it's a way of thinking, right? We have to brainstorm. Actually, maybe I should explain briefly why I call it the 6 lessons. It's not actually that I'm trying to define the last, or perhaps the one and all definition of smart city. No, not at all. It's because I had endless delegations coming from China. We work quite a bit in China. And there was a period, now it's a little bit over, that when the delegation said, we want to see smart city Berlin. So where is it? And then they go to the government, and then it's not exactly like you can see it already, and then they come to us, and you have to start explaining. And after a while, I started to realize that I'm saying the same thing, and I started to write this down in 6 lessons. There are more questions, obviously, but also lessons, because I even tested them recently on the Oberbürgermeister, the main chief mayor of Heidelberg, for the first time in a kind of intimate session, I would say. And it was quite interesting because instead of saying this is what it is, it's more like, well, this is what it's not, or these are the things you have to be careful with, or these are the things where it's going to go in too many different directions. So then, why 6 is the one reason. So far, I'm now building up a kind of a further set of lessons I will talk about at the end, briefly, because they go into the word consciousness. My feeling is that the smart city theme is a big theme, and of course we know why it's there, the technology, the data, the explosion of the internet. So there's an emergence of technology possible right now, to an exponential possibility of information transfer, which leads to all kinds of new business models and so on. But the question is still exactly why and what do we do with it, and what don't we know? Where are the things that we don't know? So maybe I just start with the. Let's see. Do I do anything else? It is on. Do I put something? Ah, okay. The connection. It's important. Yeah, okay. So these are. That's it. We need the human hand. I'll get back to that. This kind of issue of automation versus the human hand. But these are the 6 lessons, and the first one is the two cosmologies. And we have bottom up, or top down, bottom up. Then incomplete unity, co-evolution is kind of very important. Then technology's replicability, which we see a lot here, and then control and share, another big issue that's coming up. I will talk more about consciousness, but also about democracy. So the two cosmologies are actually quite important, because we shouldn't forget what is happening right now. Of course, when I'm sitting here in the Shanghai subway, and this is of course the landscape. Everybody is connected, everybody is crowdsourcing, everybody is communicating all the time. And so you could say this is a cosmology now, and humanity is doing this. Whether you like it or not, we have huge discussions in my own family, of course, how much do you want to use a smartphone, how much not, and so on and so forth. Of course, we have individual choices. And usually in an audience, I ask, mostly students here, who have a smartphone. And what's interesting is that during the last few years, this is really shift, right? Of course, some years ago, we know there were few smartphones. Then there was a period where everybody had a smartphone, which is very nice, because when you have to doubt this, people say, well, smart cities bad, right? But this doesn't get spent. And then you can talk about that you are already a community of smartphone owners, that means you are a smart city. But now there's a trend happening that is beginning to be 8% of the audience, especially young people, very young people, that don't have a smartphone, out of choice. And then you get all kinds of arguments why they don't have a smartphone. It gets complicated then, but so So there is this kind of consciousness of, well, what is it and why do we work with it? And especially with, I would say, very young people. If it's not a novelty, it's something there, and then you begin to think, well, do I want this? So, of course, we have the financing. This is one of these nets you get. The internet is Facebook. Connectivity is one kind of second connectivity of Facebook. There's some obvious missing. Russia with that, for example. I don't know why, actually. But, so, of course, we have this globality now. So one statement is that, or one lesson is that the data flows that we live with, it's global. It's a global entity. Of course, it's growing very fast, but it's global. And of course, driven by the expansion of the cities. This is Mexico City, but you can have any other growing city, 20 million, and you have the kind of growing power. The consequences of that are something else that is also global. Maybe something that started in the Industrial Revolution. We know now this is a map of the increasing temperature of the Earth. You call it climate change, call it whatever you like, but it's a global phenomenon that we have we've caused. And now I think the important thing is that if we put these two things together, at least we have something going. Like, you know, big data, or would you like to call it now, is a global topology, and climate change is a global topology. This is what I'm involved in. My chair is called the chair of Sustainable Urban Planning. Not actually the smart city chair, that kind of came almost by accident. And so I'm anyway responsible for raising this question: how do we link the one to the other, and to resource efficiency and things like this, maybe even a wider topic, poverty and health and those issues. I think they're not linked. I think they're only linked by choice, and because we have this totality, right, the global entity. This is quite important, and whenever we talk about smart city systems here and there, I think you always have to, for a moment, go up again to this level and say what I'm actually doing is I'm connected to the global issue. So, for example, in EIT, we have a lot of questions about impact. Right? If you make an integrated solution that's driven by smart systems, why do I do it? What are the real impacts? Is it comfort? Is it more health? Or is it indeed somehow an impact that relates to climate change? But then you better calculate it. You better know how the replicability works. So, cosmology is an important point, and it's a big narrative. And I think we need to always kind of question this narrative, because we have to make choices. Right? You could say, if I speed ahead a little bit, the ideal smart city doesn't actually exist. Because if you want to optimize all systems, create kind of total efficiency for everything, you begin to get conflicts. Right? If you want more efficiency here, you probably will get a conflict with something else. And so we begin to have priorities. Right? We begin to ask ourselves, okay, what would we like? To have more, or where do we think we have to make choices? So, top down, bottom up, right? Has to do with governments, of course, but also these big narratives. Where do we make laws where we say, okay, this is specific of Shanghai, for example, what we actually did. We are working in Shanghai at the moment as a consortium on quite a large project which has to do with the smartification of the rural areas of Shanghai. We are working on a model that is similar to the model that Berlin had for a while, which is to work on kind of so-called future zones. And to say, well, let's create a series of incubator zones in the city in which at least we can begin to capture a range of technologies. All of these symbols stand for very particular projects, or maybe services, or maybe systems, and we begin to look at how they can function at least in an incubator environment. In order to understand them, if possible, we would like to replicate them. That's what the red dots mean. In different areas that are not incubator areas, and this replication and the adaptation then of different types of projects is what we actually then looking for. However, that's all very nice, and we can draw this very well, good graphic people with me, but of course on the ground there are people living that either live in a small village, or they want to grow some vegetables, or they want to buy a new smart home and things like that. And that leads us to this kind of layering that we are now working with. This is what we call a kind of a prototype layering of a piece of a city, but you can also say it's a piece of the skin of the earth through which we connect things. So I would say, well, the moment we're really focused on, especially here in CeBIT, is this area. Right? This is kind of a mixture between a cutout of information flows, just as it's happening right now, zipping through our brains, and sensors. Right? We're trying to begin to draw as architects, we're beginning to ask ourselves, where are the sensors? Right? Where is the sensor? And what is the shape, the form, the design of the totality of the sensor? You can see, with these millions of little dots here, this is just symbolic. But we feel that begins to be a layer of the city that we have to work with. The more physical part of the city is this. This is what me and my colleagues usually design as a kind of physical city. And then, of course, we begin to have the ubiquitous infrastructure, the pipes, the links, the optical cables that begin to distribute the systems. This is where the smart city is in a way kind of generated. And then we begin to have this, which is the landscape of organizations, communities, governments that run all these things. And that's the complexity that we have to deal with today. Where do we make actually decisions for one or another thing? And we're now really talking about designing through these 4 layers, and they also contain criteria. So we actually try to play out the criteria. So on the one hand, we're trying to look more at actual, the flows of information, or the places where the data are actually generated, processed, or caught in an urban landscape. And we're looking, of course, a lot at these things, which are groups of people, organizations, that overlap with different interests, but that they want sometimes to interact with each other, and they can't, for example. And so it's a complex landscape of human interaction. You see a breakdown of these. This was a project for London, for the Old Common Smart City District. You see the types of stakeholders you get in this kind of process, and with which you have to negotiate. So we're beginning to see more and more that if we still stick to the smartness, the actual smartness is the kind of human intelligence that emerges out of the negotiations related to these things. Like, for example, here you see some cards about standardized building kit for smart cities. Where would you begin to plug in your e-bikes? Like, where do you have your smart parking lots? All these very concrete things, and how do you plug them into larger scale infrastructure? Because where innovation has to happen is partly the types of infrastructure that allow all kinds of systems to be plugged in. That leads, of course, to the innovation in metabolic thinking, in which flows will touch each other across these infrastructures, and of course also in financial investment. Where do you invest? At which point are you able to get biogas so you can lead biogas from local people to a petrol station where you can buy it? These are some designs of my students, but these are decentralized projects. A very simple example of how could you get local people involved in a decentralized energy system using biogas. What do you actually do? Where do you have to dig? Where you have to negotiate, where you have to design, and those things. So these are all the kind of bits that come, is the more physical side of smart cities. And of course, you have to treat it like a game. We use gamification a lot because we have to teach people in a playful way to begin to work with the different technologies and options and solutions we have. And we start very early. This was an installation we had in Chengdu, Smart City Chengdu, where you could see various young kids that are totally fascinated by the game. They don't know yet what it exactly means, but they are certainly the ones that are going to live in the cities that we build. So we want to train them already and thinking in a playful way with this complexity of city planning. Just bottom up, I would say. But the infrastructure I was talking about before requires heavy investment and really top-down investment and planning. So you have to use different kind of levels that you need to do, because if that person doesn't go to the petrol station to buy some energy there or something like that, if human behavior doesn't drive it, it doesn't work. Now, incomplete unity. This is an important thing because it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be complete. So we're working on some projects where we're actually testing out this incompleteness. For example, we're working on a very large project on that's straddling the Taiwan Strait, where politically it's impossible to do a single unified project. Simply impossible strategically. But it's possible on a cultural level to say, to bring people together and to say, well, let's do one project here and another project here and make sure that they are connected, that there's an exchange on a cultural level. So you have to actually live with the incompleteness of overall smart city projects. This is the east coast of mainland China. This is Taiwan, as you probably can see, and this is a utopian project, but it's actually still, it's important to say, well, hold on, we have all the technologies possible to create smart grids and energy systems and all that, but you've got to have all these fragmented projects that are driven by themselves. So we're trying to design building kits with which we can have these localized projects that are meaningful in themselves, but actually are beginning to be connected across this incompleted field. So we have to live with fragments, these incompleted systems, but we have to know how we can plan them. So the building kits are becoming more and more important. Now, of course, once we have these fragments, we work with these fragments, a very important point emerges, namely co-evolution. Right? We have to begin to see that if we have projects like the Smart City project in London, this is a project that's being handled by an EU-funded project we're part of. It's called Smart Sustainable Districts. We see the leaders of the district. This is a former Olympic district. Right? They're trying to turn this into a smart sustainable district. Now, partly you have investors building high-rises, partly you have energy companies, and you see construction is going on. And how do you bring these people together? And maybe how do you co-evolve the different interests and the different expertise? This was a session we managed in a city hall in London, where you see the different experts and investors sitting together, actually through gamification, together try to figure out how can you create solutions. And here you see a bit more developed standardized version of the Smart City Building Kit. How can we create solutions that are really integrated and solve more complex issues? And so we do that like this, but then we feed it back, of course, in a more complex planning tool. And you get sessions like this. This is a really fantastic session. These are the owners of the data sources in that area. So it's a club of data owners negotiating here how to handle this. Access with all the data ownership. That's the actual the reality that we're now having to deal with. Who owns what, and how do you connect, and who links to what, and where do you validate the information you actually get, and so on and so forth. And you get these types of diagrams, so you're familiar with these things. And that's the kind of architecture that we now have to work with. So co-evolution, right? And that's a very human action. Then we have the technologies and replicability. A lot of that you see around here at the moment. And where we're moving, of course, is not just technologies that enter the potential of the internet as we have it right now, but as city builders. We're also beginning to look at how Industry 4.0 begins to enter the actual making of the city. They're actually talking a lot now about city making as part of the smart city. So not only digital aspects, but actually what happens then to the building of new cities from ground up with new components. Like we see in the car industry, for example. This is a Tesla factory. This is happening, but we're beginning to have to look at the actual physical components with which we create these cities, that means the future environment in which people live. This can be a village, or a city, or a region. And we're starting on a village project in Indonesia, in different regions, for example, and also China, to look actually, can we create smart components of very simple environments, actually. But we have to understand where there's a smartness that begins to be physical. Where do we link, and where we have the kind of interfaces between city living and for example, new typologies for housing. Key aspect. So we have the feeling smart cities kind of moving along and say, well, actually, how do we live now? And not only that this thermal side is smart, but actually can we have complete new types of technology we constantly have access to the digital power. But that leads to these bigger questions that are coming. And these bigger questions are the questions of control and share. And increasingly, I'm beginning to see in the many cities that we go to, I work with, that the desire for what we can gain out of these smart city systems comes with a necessity to control. Right? Just like a control room for a bus system, for example, or the famous Rio control room by IBM. So more and more we need these control rooms, or intelligent operation centers as they're now called. But at the same time, then the big question comes when who controls what? How do you negotiate? And how do you share this control? And that's really a question of democracy. And we've been playing with this idea of new types of prototype control rooms. So we had the metropolitan solution. We had last year we had the so-called brain box, as it was called then, which was a kind of light way of saying, well, we are simulating this as a kind of overall smart city control room. Of course, it's not possible technically, plus we don't have the money to bring it all together. But at the same time, we bring in negotiation components. So we have this interactive tables, for example, here, with which the card systems, we use these card systems to bring citizens together, to bring experts together, to say, but hold on, this is also a space where you can actually interact with these systems and potentially even can influence the decision-making process. That means democratic processes. This is now all written, of course, in the new contract of the Berlin government, for example, when it's kind of a wave of this happening, right? Crowdsourcing, participation, and so on and so forth. That things that are empowered actually through technology, but are really rethinking democracy. And I think this is really important because the aspect of control and share is really a difficult question. Who can point and say, let's do something here? And do we have the right constellation of stakeholders, people, culture, narratives to make it happen, and why do we want it to happen? That leads me to one more thing, which is the aspect of consciousness, because the last year or two, perhaps, I started to get also worried a little bit, because I begin to see that if we really build up what we call a smart city, that means we create a kind of critical mass of systems that we empower, right, through our data and by making themselves intelligent, then the question is actually, is the city beginning to be, first of all, robotic, just like these production systems I was showing? But even further, to what degree do we want to, as it were, give over the authority of decision making? And we're moving now, of course, in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we're now linking up at the TU with my colleagues that are doing machine learning, and we're linking up with colleagues in the Charité, for example, because we're trying to think. But hold on, if we put more and more intelligence in the city, and the city is very closely connected to our body. Right? That's what the smart city is doing through all our gadgets and apps and so on. What point is the city like a brain? Now, for a while, there was a kind of metaphorical question, but we came closer and closer to which it actually is physically happening, like the smart city as we're having now. And to what points do we have this consciousness that comes through systems, and once we plug the systems in this kind of performance room, this is a design of a performance room, what points do we negotiate, not just with ourselves, where do we want a better system or better health or quicker traffic and so on, but what point do we negotiate with this collective, the intelligence of the city itself? I would like to raise this as a question, because it worries me, but I think this is happening. We can design these things, and we are now talking to some cities about beginning to build these first pseudo control rooms, but I call them actually new democracy rooms, right? So going back to the old Greek cities where you had the agora and where the trading left the trading and action left with a new democracy. And so we can design these things, of course, but the question is, hold on, wait a second, are we thinking about this? And so I'm quite happy to be part of this new center. It's called the Einstein Center Digital Futures, that will be opened officially on the 3rd of April in Berlin. We are actually already playing a little bit with it, because we're beginning to look who's involved, the different universities, all that knowledge and thinking, can we actually bring them into our kind of planning process to begin to look, hold on, where can we apply these forms of pilot level thinking and bring it into the city. You see again my diagram from before. In order to make sure we have always the big questions once we start looking at the solutions. And for that, I think this is a great initiative, and I hope it will help us move from smart city to whatever comes next. We call it conscious city because we think the human aspect will become a bigger issue, actually. So I'd like to end there. Thank you very much.